Alright, what is going on everyone? Welcome back to the channel, or if this is your first time here, then welcome in. We're going to be talking about PulseChain in this video, and more specifically, we're going to do some PLS price speculation. Now, none of this is financial advice. I will leave that disclaimer here at the beginning of the video this time, but let's go ahead and talk about the data we have to kind of get into a logical and rational speculation on the price of PLS. So, what do we have to work with so far? Well, we have some info. Such as our bonding curve, which gives us an analogy for price, right? It's not price, it's actually rate per points, but given the fact that each point will more or less be airdropped one-to-one PLS, or that's the plan at least, then they're interchangeable in terms of this speculation. So if you go to LookIntoHex.com and go to the Pulse tab, so /PLS, then we have here our bonding curve in a way that more explicitly shows you, well, what is the price, or what is the rate, or the value of one PLS token. And at this point in time, it looks like we have 0.00018. And that makes sense, right? Because all you really have to do is divide this right here, this $1.89 by 10,000. And it gives you this number right here of 0.0001886, right? And this is simply due to the fact that rate has been increasing by 5% every single day, right? And we only have approximately, like 9 hours until the day ticks over, and then it becomes slightly more expensive, another 5% to finish off the sacrifice phase. So we're close, right? This is the final stretch, and let's get into the fun stuff that you guys probably actually care about. So, given the fact that the capital that has entered is closer to our neutral prediction, right? Our neutral prediction, if you recall, was around the $900 million mark. And I believe we're currently sitting at approximately $700 million. So let's go ahead and pull up pulselead.xyz. And this tells us the amount of coin value, USD value, that is, and this is the value that's based on the time the crypto is actually sacrificed, right? So about $710 million of value has entered the chat. And again, our prediction was, conservative 200 million to 1.6 billion, where 200 million is more on the bearish side and 1.6 billion is more on the bullish side. Clearly, right? Kind of played out. And this is all based off of a Telegram poll, by the way, which is kind of crazy. The neutral prediction we had was $893 million. So we're right smack dab closer to neutral, but in between both bearish and neutral, right? So I think that's really cool. The fact that we landed pretty close to what we expected. What does this tell us? Well, remember that the more value that's sacrificed, the more the actual supply of PLS will be. So given an average rate of, let's say, 10,000 points per PLS, which it's not exactly that, right? I did some math. There's a lot of context. So I need to provide you with this context before we actually go into what I want to go into. So bear with me here. But I did some quick math, right? And I looked at, based on these separate volume multipliers, as well as based on the fact that it flattens out on the last 3 days and the 5% increase given each volume multiplier, you're looking at an average entry price that people could have gotten 10,000 points with. And for the little guy, it looks like $1.21 if you average out every single day's price per 10,000 points. You get $1.21. And it decreases the more volume bonus you had, all the way from $1.21 little guy, right, down to 58 cents for the whale, which obviously they're going to get a better cost basis because they get a 2.5x volume multiplier simply for having the biggest stack, right? And so if you take an average for every sort of strata, and then you average out those and divide by 10,000, you get this sort of average rate of 0.00008. So almost 10,000 points per dollar, and actually a little more, right? A little more. Let's do some really quick math actually. How many points per dollar on average did people get? 12, this isn't dollars, but so 12,246 points. So a little over 10,000, right? And this is due simply to the kind of the average bonus multiplier, I guess. Does it work that way? I don't know, man. But on average, people got or had the ability to get their pulse at about 12,246 pulse per dollar. The reason I said I don't know is because then you have to get into like how many people, because this is going to be a weighted average, right? I just did a simple average here, which is a simple model. And obviously no model is 100% correct. What I'm trying to get at here is that if we took a weighted average of the actual amount of people that sacrificed in each value strata, then you would get a more accurate representation of what does it cost the average person to get 10,000 points, right? And it's looking like about 81 cents or so. So with that kind of all out of the way, and you get an idea of what price per pulse is, if it existed, right? It doesn't exist, so that's why we're calling it a rate. Yeah, there's a lot of context here. Then you can kind of get an idea based on other coins and what they've done to look at where we could be going for PLS. I want to just get right into it, but there was a lot to say. And okay, let's give you an example. So if $700 million have entered the sacrifice phase, then if market cap were $700 million, everyone would be more or less break even, right? And I've seen some tweets about equating the amount sacrificed or raised or whatever to an actual market cap, and that's not actually correct. That's not actually correct at all, if I'm just going to be completely honest. Like, again, this is still context, so bear with me. If you enjoy this kind of content, you're definitely still here. Think about the adoption amplifier for Hex, right? Allegedly, 1 million ETH or so ended up in the hands of the origin address, meaning approximately $2.5 billion. That's 2.5 billion US dollars worth of value was raised more or less for Hex, right? However, is the market cap of Hex 2.5 billion? No, it's 70 billion, right? And so you have a multiplier effect on actual money raised, or you always have this multiplier, by the way, on whether it be amount of money raised in a startup, right? Their valuations tend to be a multiple of that money raised. So I'll just give you an example. Let's say a startup raises $100 million. They could be valued at 500 million, even $1 billion, right? Maybe even higher sometimes. So there are different ways you can kind of calculate and evaluate a startup. Obviously, crypto is different, but I just thought it was kind of the best analogy here in the space. Definitely a tech, definitely in kind of a technological asset. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, man, but I thought a startup was a very similar analogy to which we could say, you know what, just because there's a certain amount of money raised doesn't necessarily mean that the market cap is going to be valued at that. And we all know market cap is kind of a fluffed up number anyways, which allows startups, for example, to be valued at something higher than the amount they actually raised. So if PulseChain raises $700 million, which it already has, I wouldn't be surprised to see a $7 billion market cap, right? $7 billion market cap or $70 billion market cap. Like, it depends on a lot of things. Now, the example of Hex is a great one, right? Because $2 billion raised, or $2.5 billion at current Ether prices, which is about 30x less than the actual market cap. So let's just throw that number out there, that 30x, right? And we said startups, they can have this multiplier effect when you evaluate relative to amount raised. So if there have been $700 million raised and you multiply that by 30, you're looking at 21 billion, okay? So let's just get into 21 billion for now. We'll use that number just for the sake of argument here, for the thought experiment. So $21 billion, right? Divided by how many coins will be in circulation. Well, it's looking like about 10 trillion. And that's why I started off with all of this context of the actual sacrifice capital. Because according to this, right, if approximately $700 million have entered the sacrifice phase, and it costs people approximately this much per pulse, you're looking at about a 10 trillion supply initially for PLS. So there's your rough estimate, okay? So we're going to continue doing our math. So if you divide this 21 billion by 100, or excuse me, 21 billion by 10 trillion, 10,000, 10 million, billion, 10 trillion, you're looking at 0.002, which is cool. I like this. Why? Because let's divide this by what a lot of people could have gotten their pulse at, which is this number, 81654, divided by 81654. Is that what it was? Yep. I'm just clicking all over the place. Please excuse me. You're looking at a 25x, right? So not bad, not bad. Meaning a more or less logical, rational, speculative prediction here is giving us an ROI of about 25x. Now, is this like immediate? No, obviously. How long did it take Hex to actually reach this market cap? Well, about a year and a half. But then you can also get into the argument that like at the time of raise, it wasn't $2.5 billion of ETH for Hex, right? At the time of raise, oh man, well, Ether was going from like $100 to $600, $1 to like $700. So let's just say on average it was like $300 or $400 during the time of the actual raise. Then you're looking at like 7x lower than the 2.5 billion. Just doing some quick math. So at the time of raise, you'd really only raise like $300 million or $300 to $400 million on Hex via the AA is what I'm trying to say. And so this actual market cap of 70 billion over initial raise of about 300 million, it's actually closer to like, what's the math on that bad boy? 10 times like 23, like 230x difference? Is that right? Let's do the math. So 70B, which is 70,000 million, over about, let's just say 300 million. Yeah, 230 x multiplier, which is a lot. This is way more on the bullish side, by the way, which is saying if we had a 233x multiplier of money raised to market cap and then later kind of divide that by supply to give us potential price, then you're looking at a 233 times 700 million. Assuming 700 million is the only thing that's to be raised, right? And this takes us to 163,000 million, which is about $163 billion. That would put us at top 3 market cap. That would flip Hex, right? That would definitely see Pulse flipping Hex, assuming Hex didn't do more than like a 2x in that same amount of time. And so $163 billion, right? Divided by, so 163,000 million divided by 10. How do you get 10 trillion with this? See, I'm just trying to do some math, like kind of avoiding zeros, but it's just easy. Let's just do it easy. Let's see, 163 billion, so 1,000 million, divided by, what's 10 trillion? That's 10,000 million, so 10 million divided by 10 million. We're looking at about a penny, 1.6 pennies per pulse. So our previous kind of less bullish prediction was about a fifth of a penny per pulse. And this way more bullish prediction is saying something like, 1.6 pennies per pulse. And I mean, a lot of people would be happy with either one because that first one was obviously about a 25x ROI. And the second one would be something more like, like a 200x ROI. which isn't crazy to think about given what, for example, Hex has done. Hex has done like a 3,860x approximately from all-time low to all-time high in 1.5 years. And the first time it reached a few hundred X was in its first year of existence. The first time it reached 25X was, you can actually check via our max ROI. Like, when did it actually reach 25X? Just 127 days in. So just about 4 months in, right, is when Hex had already 27X. And it had already 279X in the first year. So these numbers aren't too out there, in my opinion, like a 20 to 200X in the first year. I could see it happening, and it would obviously make a lot of people very, very happy, a lot of people very, very wealthy. No expectations, not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own due diligence, do research, all of that good stuff. But this was just some quick kind of analysis and predictions via market cap, because I see you guys using market cap as a potential valuation mechanism, and there are a lot of things wrong with that, I will admit. So that's why I wanted to kind of bring it up in a new light, saying look at what money raised relative to actual valuations are, showing you that they're not the same thing by a long shot. There are these big multiples between them, and this is normal, right? This is normal. Just to give another quick example is look at the volume, man. 20 million bucks on a $71 billion market cap. Yeah, you see that with companies like Apple, for example, because when the incentive and a large use case is just to hold the thing, you're not really doing much with it, right? Like if you're trying to day trade it, sure, you'd see a ton of volume. If you see bots with spoofing, then sure, you'd see a ton of volume, but that doesn't help anyone, man. Like it just doesn't. And the reason I had the liquidity tab open, I just remembered, was to give a similar example again. Total liquidity is, last I checked, right, about $36 million of liquidity, 12 million of that on the bid side, or 13, and about 23 million of that on the bid side. Well, I said that weird. About 13 million on the ask side, excuse me, and about 23 million on the bid side. So the point here is $36 million of total liquidity, about $20 million of volume, about $300 million raised at the beginning, right, in the tens, hundreds of millions, yet market cap is in the tens to hundreds of billions, right? Whole 1000x factor. So I hope you understand that market cap is definitely a fluffed up number. It's a good marketing indicator, and obviously everyone in crypto loves to use it as a sort of ranking system. It is what it is, but just I want to have you know that market cap relative to something like volume or money raised or even liquidity is off by factors of could be 10, 100x to 1000x, and nothing is actually wrong with that. That's just the way markets work. So that's really all I wanted to point out in this video. Make sure to get your sacrifices in the next, what is this, 33 hours if you haven't already, if you want to participate via this mechanism of sacrifice. If not, you can obviously wait until mainnet launches, of which the date is to be announced, right? We have no idea. We just have to see public testnet actually go live, kind of undergo a little bit of battle testing, make sure nothing breaks, give the DeFi guys time to build the front ends for their dApps if they want to participate. Obviously, go.hex.com needs to be a little revamped to make sure you can just switch between pHex and Hex. Hopefully, other cryptos that are priced out of Ethereum, get on it and start building against PulseChain, building their front ends and all that for incentive for people to participate in an ecosystem that's just ready to rock. And that's one of the biggest value propositions of PulseChain, is the fact that it's coming with pretty much everything, right? The entire ecosystem, everyone's coming over. So it'll be an unprecedented, great experiment in crypto that I can only speak for myself, but I'm super excited to see how it all plays out. So check out yesterday's video if you haven't already on the money raised for sends. Obviously an amazing thing. And yeah, go ahead and follow on Twitter, twitter.com/Gerardog. That's GERAWRDOG. Good luck finding that. Or twitter.com/LookIntoHex. LookIntoHex.com for the charts that we share and updated real time. We'll be getting rid of the actual sacrifice and PLS pairs charts shortly, right? Once PulseChain sacrifice is over, we're going to be getting rid of these because there's going to be no point, right? These were just for about 19 days. And then we'll figure out what we're going to add here. I'm thinking of adding some cool t-shirt stuff. I reached out to Ryan from hexdailystats.com for some of the historical data on that, see if he has it. If he does, cool. If not, we can still work around it. But I have some cool charts I want to show you guys for t-shares. So I don't think people have presented it in this way, is all I have to say. But obviously PulseChain is hot right now, and it's bringing in the eyeballs. It's the topic to be focusing on right now, specifically for the next 33 hours, which is why this video is on that. So please forgive me for the not lack of hex content, but less than usual. But I'll be getting back on that shortly. So I do appreciate you watching. Subscribe, most definitely. Let's get to 5K subs. If you haven't by now, hit that sub button. Leave a like, comment on any questions you might have, suggestions, any of that. So again, appreciate you watching. Catch you in the next video.